What is up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Dense Pixels podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brad, joined by my co-host, Micah.
Hello.
Really sorry about the last 2 weeks, because we can't catch a break on this show. So 2 weeks ago, we were recording. My computer crashed very hard right in the middle of the recording. Could not recover the file, so that was a shame. And then last week's schedule just didn't line up. So we don't typically like to go 2 weeks without a show, but that's okay because we have quite the show for you today. The Microsoft-Sony battle is getting to incredible stages of ridiculousness, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I figured we could just start by talking about stuff we've been playing for the last 3 weeks, because I have been playing an eclectic mix of games over the last several weeks here.
I've only played one game, and it's not. I haven't had a chance to play a lot of it. It's Like a Dragon Ishin.
Yeah, that's not a surprise.
And yeah, it's a remake of a game that came out. It was released 9 years to the day after its initial release, and it's more like a dragon, but it is it's very fun. Like you have your the Like a Dragon games are weird. Like they're very Japanese, and I don't just mean that because like it stars a bunch of Japanese people. I mean like the type of humor, the balance between this hyper serious story about, in this case, a man going after finding a man who killed his essentially father, and him infiltrating the army in order to find this guy, and it breaks up a brotherhood that he and another character have, and it's super serious. Coupled with these just like wacky side quests about like teaching kids the different continents on a globe, and just like weird stuff.
And ripping off one of my favorite cult classic films in the process as well.
Which one is that?
I'm referring to the bathhouse scene when you're fighting like a dude in a bathhouse, apparently, which I don't even know if you've gotten there yet.
Yeah. I have gotten there where you're just where you're and like you're just naked. You're like you're there. You're naked. What is that? That was it. Viggo Mortensen was in that movie.
Oh no, not this. Not the one I'm thinking of, at least. The movie I'm referring to is the 1991 cinema classic starring Dolph Lundgren and Brandon Lee, a little film by the name of Showdown in Little Tokyo.
Here I am going with this hyper serious,
no, absolutely
history of violence, whatever the movie was. That's funny. But yeah, like you're fighting a dude, and like then he befriends you. Because that's what happens in Like a Dragon games. It's really fun. You get to choose between multiple different styles of combat that you can switch on the fly. All guns, barehanded, sword, or a combination of sword and gun. Sword and gun is the best because
of course it is.
I mean, right, like it's like there are instances where you would want to switch to just your sword if you're like in a one-on-one duel, but those are like for bosses. Any other time you're fighting crowds of people, and you can spin around like a top with a sword extended in one hand and a gun extended in the other, and you're just spinning around shooting. It's really good for crowd control. Barehanded is kind of like if you want to show off, and it's very like parry based. And the gun only, I mean, it's incredibly situational, right? Like if you're in a dungeon and you're down a long corridor, then you could switch to your gun only and still like just bust off from 12, 13, 14 feet away. But it's it also follows the trappings of Like a Dragon games. That's why like you gotta kind of, if you ever want to get into one, Brad, I would recommend you pick Yakuza 0.
Hmm.
I think that has a a perfect balance. It's a prequel, so you can just kind of jump in. But if you wanted to get a feel for it, it's
Hmm.
super cheap right now. But these games are, I mean, we complain about Hideo Kojima games being like very long winded.
Hmm.
Nah, man, these games are literally just like sit the controller down and just like guess who grab some popcorn.
Yeah,
Um,
but is it done without like the melodrama? Because that's the thing that gets me about the Kojima games is just like the hyper seriousness of everything going on. Like I feel like if a lot of the scenes are like a little tongue in cheek, it'd be a little bit easier to sit through.
it depends, man. Like if it's a side quest, we're having fun. But if it's the main quest, if it's the main quest, like no, they are incredibly self serious.
Hmm.
It's just funny how self serious they are, right? Like, oh, I'm a gangster that's been exiled for a murder that I didn't commit, and the murder was of my parental figure, and now I have to go clear my name. But along the way, I gotta find a guy who's stealing girls' panties because like that's a side quest. Like, it's
It's
very
just
odd, man.
well, it's just one of those things where like I there's so many people who I know and whose opinions I trust who like swear by these games, like swear by this series, and you know talk about how like it's the greatest thing going. Like they put it on a higher plane than like Grand Theft Auto and other like open world games. Or I shouldn't say open world games, other sandbox games of its ilk. So like the FOMO is starting to set in a little bit, and it always
I
happens in
would,
the wake of a new one. So
yeah. If you, I mean, we're about to be like we're about to run the AAA gauntlet right now. So
well,
I don't.
that's why like I've been taking it easy for the like I'm basically treading water until we get to June because
Yeah,
June is well even really May like like I'm not like on the edge of my seat for Tears of the Kingdom, but I feel like you almost have to play it to some
yeah,
extent. So
yeah.
I've been playing a little of a lot of games right now. I did finally dip into Theater Rhythm, the new one, the final bar line that came out recently. I haven't played much of it because my wife. So we have one copy that's digitally downloaded, but you can only play it on one Switch at a time. And my wife has already clocked like 60 hours into the game, and she's almost like 100%ed it, which is crazy to me. The game itself is it's fine. Like it's a music rhythm game, right? And so you have these like four tracks that go across the screen, and you're just basically trying to time button presses along with the beat. There's also a party building system where you can like build a party of Final Fantasy characters across the entire gamut of games, and you can equip them with skills and ability and stuff like that. Because in order to beat like the state, in order to like really complete the stages, not just beat the song, but really complete the stage, like you have to be able to deal enough damage and you know cater to the enemy's weaknesses and things like that because they show you that before the game starts. Ton of content in the game. There's like I think it's like close to 400 songs just in the base game by itself. And it's pretty solid. And what's really cool is that if you're not like an RPG fan, can't say JRPG anymore. We found out from from
Yeah,
Yoshi
I saw
P.
that.
Apparently
I
that's
saw
a
that.
pejorative now.
It's the N word for them over there.
Yeah, but so like my wife now is like after she's played this for like several like you know dozens of hours, she comes to me and she's like, I think I'd like to try one of these. And I'm like, that's interesting. I was like, which one do you want to try? She's like, which one should I try? I was like, well, I'll tell you what. I was like, you tell me which one speaks to you the most based on the music and the characters that you've seen. And if I don't think it's a good entry point into Final Fantasy, then I will like veto you. But you know, for the most part, like I'll be there to help guide you along. And she's like, well, I think I want to try 7. And I'm like, you know what? That's a good starting in point to the Final Fantasy series.
Yeah. I mean, look, as much as we like to have fun at Seven's expense, it's the reason why they keep making these things,
Yeah, pretty
right?
much.
Like,
Pretty
it's the
much. So,
reason that that the role playing games from Japan are as popular as they are.
yes. So she just started playing 7 for the first time a couple days ago. So it's going to be fun to kind of watch her through that process. And then if she really likes it, I've got a whole lot more games to show her. So that should be really exciting.
Man, I'm really interested in her take of like Sephiroth
Yeah.
because Sephiroth is like you're technically a millennial. Gen Zers and like young millennials.
Hmm.
Well, now you got a wise soul,
Yeah.
but millennials really and some young some older like people around my age they love Sephiroth. They love Sephiroth. And aside from having a giant sword,
Hmm.
they can't really tell me why they love Sephiroth. I challenge anybody to tell me why you absolutely love Sephiroth, other than the fact that you think he looks cool. Um, I'm very curious to know why you love Sephiroth. He is not my favorite character in that game. Nowhere close.
I mean, to be
But
fair, I don't know if I had to pick a character from Final Fantasy VII, then I would have a favorite character per se from that
I
game.
mean, from that game, yeah, I would. Tifa is my favorite. I love Tifa. I love her vibe. I love the fact
Hmm.
that she's a monk. As much as I may be a little biased, but like I got a soft spot for Barrett because Barrett is just fucking. He's a loud black guy who just wants to say, "I just want to save the planet, Cloud." You know what I mean? Like, um, don't- I like Sid because Sid reminds me of Dennis Leary, and I like Dennis Leary.
They all fall kind of all the characters in that game fall kind of flat for me. So
Look,
that
I get it
yeah.
because I ran out. I had to think about Sid. I very quickly ran out.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm excited to see how what becomes of that. Still playing Monster Hunter Rise. Clocked over 150 hours in that game. It's kind of insane how they still keep throwing new things to unlock at you even that far into the experience, which is pretty dope. Started playing Wargroove again because I guess I just got tired of waiting for Advance Wars to come out. So like I'm scratching my turn based strategy itch a little bit with that one. On a whim, I just got the inkling to download Ridge Racer 4 and start playing that on the Steam Deck, and that game's very fun. But yeah, I'm just kind of treading water right now. Like part of me wants to jump into a Souls game. The problem is that Souls game that I want to jump into is Bloodborne, and I can't play that on my Steam Deck. And I would prefer to. So we'll see. But we've got 2 months to fill before we get to Zelda coming out. So we just have to kind of chip away with small stuff in the meantime until that comes out. So yeah, that's what I've been playing. Let's get into this Sony Microsoft news because this is just getting silly now. So Sony's doing kind of like the legal version of just kind of throwing shit at the wall and praying something sticks. Because their latest excuse as to why this merger is a bad idea is it really takes the cake. According to Sony, a statement to the CMA says that if Microsoft were to acquire Activision, that they could not only withhold access from Sony of Call of Duty games potentially, but they also say that Microsoft could degrade the quality and performance of the game on PlayStation consoles, degrade the game to ignore PlayStation specific features, and then not prioritize investment in Call of Duty multiplayer on PlayStation and then make the game available on a subscription service only on Game Pass. Basically, that Microsoft would sabotage the Sony release of Call of Duty. Microsoft responded to this by saying that they guarantee parity between the Xbox and PlayStation versions of Call of Duty, were this to come to pass. I just find it hilarious that this is kind of the direction that Sony's running in now. They're going to ruin our game. Like, I don't think that would work the way you think it would, Sony. Like, they would piss off a lot of people if they did that.
Yeah, man. Like, I don't. Also, like, these two aren't so different that, you know, releasing a buggy game on one system wouldn't directly affect another.
Yeah.
I guess they could only push out patches. They can do an Assassin's Creed Unity and then only push out patches for the Xbox, I guess. But no, that speaks very weirdly of like Sony protesting a little too much. Like, are you saying that because you would have done that? Like, it's just kind of weird. It's just kind of weird that you would just bring that up like that.
I just feel like they're running out of credible arguments to make. like they've exhausted all the credible arguments, and now they're going to the incredulous arguments that they could possibly do. Now that being said, Microsoft not above this. We talked about how Microsoft came out, the other week, and they were like, "Look, guys, we signed a 10-year agreement with our good friends at Nintendo to make sure that Call of Duty games will be on the Nintendo consoles forever and ever, and including the current hardware and whatnot." And the CMA, like the UK regulatory body who's in charge of approving or denying this merger, was like, "Yeah, this is bullshit." like you damn well know this thing can't run on a fucking Nintendo Switch. Get out of here, fools.
It's very weird, right? Like, it's like, well, here's my new best friend, and then like it's like a kindergartner. Like, well, you're not gonna hang out with this kid, man. Like, what are you doing? This is like, shut up.
I wonder how Nintendo feels about being essentially like a prop in this negotiation. Like, they're just this like they're like a useful idiot of sorts. Like, I guess that's like the best way to say it, where they're just kind of saying here, like, yeah, we like Call of Duty, I guess. Like, it's super important to our long-term strategy. Maybe. Forget the fact that the last Call of Duty that came out on a Nintendo console was 10 years ago at this point, which is also very hilarious to me.
The screams of like an American trying to prove to a Japanese person that they're not a racist by having another Japanese. See, some of my best friends are Japanese. Like, all right. All right.
Oh my god! Next, I want them to put like Mario into Call of Duty games. Yeah, I think.
Look,
I think on the Lost episode, you and Terrence talked about, like, you have like a fire flower power up in the game and shit. Like
yeah,
that,
man, they should do it. They should do it. Like, what's the point of being buddy with Nintendo if you're not gonna milk their IPs for nostalgic purposes? Because that's what everyone does.
Yeah.
Right. That's what they're good for. If you partner with Nintendo, you gotta have a skin of just like Mario characters.
Yeah.
As soldiers, you know what I mean? Like, but just them walking around.
Yeah,
teabagging people.
Definitely something Nintendo is going to go for. I assure you. Notably edgy company, Nintendo in Japan, out here just licensing Mario however you could possibly imagine. And then, for what it's worth, Reuters reported about a week or so ago that the EU is likely to approve the merger. So that's one less hurdle for Microsoft to have to jump through. So they really just have to worry about the CMA. And then the U.S., the SE, or what is it, the fucking FTC?
Yeah.
So, like, on one hand, like, I can't wait to see what the next, like, thing that's thrown out by one of these companies is. On the other hand, I just kind of want it to be over at this point. Like I feel like we've had our fun. We all know it's going to go through. There's no way that the government regulators are just going to slam the door completely closed. I'm sure Microsoft will make whatever concession they have to in order to make this work, and Sony will cry about it the entire time. So.
Yeah. Well, there's only one thing for Sony to do, and that's to bring back their premier first-person shooter, Haze.
That wasn't theirs. That was multi-platform.
That was multi-platform?
Yeah. How dare you? How dare you? Or no, maybe it wasn't multi-platform. No, it was not multi-platform. But it was not a Sony published game. I can assure you.
Oh, okay.
So you are besmirching and leaving in the dust the fabled name of the Killzone franchise, which I literally just watched a retrospective on YouTube last night. I shit you not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was enough there to have there were 3 games.
There were 6 games, Micah, in the Killzone franchise.
What?
There were 4.
That has to include like Vitas.
It does.
2 Vita games.
It does. Arguably, the handheld Killzone games that were designed around their specific consoles' capabilities were 2 of the better games in the franchise, by most reports.
All right.
So,
hey.
Yeah. And then they had 4 console releases. I begrudge nobody for forgetting about all but one of them, because only Killzone 2 was like a spectacular game when it came out.
Man, if only Sony had their own massive action game with which they could use as their Call of Duty.
Look, I know we forget about it now, but I will stand Killzone 2's multiplayer. Really fun. Like, I enjoyed the hell out of it back in the day.
I wanted to love Killzone. I did.
Yeah.
But it just didn't really do it for me.
Didn't like a whole shooter franchise based around space racism, essentially.
Yeah, and normally I would read about that. That's my jam, yo. Like I am all about military, science fiction, space Nazis. Just killing space Nazis. I got no problem with that. But for some reason, it just didn't do it for me, and I think that reason's name was Rico.
Yeah, I know it was. As been much talked about on the show. Also, fun fact. It's always fun kind of to look back at old video games because you never know how people's careers are going to unfold, right? Do you remember that in Killzone 2, Brian Cox was the Helgen Emperor?
Right.
Yeah. And he did not only the voice, he like mocapped the game too, because they did full motion capture for that shit.
That's right. I totally forgot about that. Wow. Just telling people to fuck off and wow, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
That is wow. I am old. And if you want to commiserate with being old with me, go to denspixel.com/fans and get invited to our Discord. There you can talk about all the gaming news that's fit to type in, because we don't print things now because paper's dying. You can we got a lot of channels there that you can just come hang out with. Come hang out with us and talk about wrestling or F1 or soccer or anything gaming related. Go to denspixel.com/fans. Go to youtube.com/densepixels and subscribe. When you go to youtube.com/densepixels and subscribe and click like, you can see that I'm going to change my camera angle every month, just to keep you people on your toes.
Because Micah does not have one camera that he uses for streaming and one for his photography side hustle. He uses the same camera.
Yeah. I use the same camera, and that's like shit. We have a show to do today, Now I have to go and reset everything. And so yeah, now you're getting a very rare view of the point of view of someone looking down on me physically. People look down on me metaphorically all the time, but not many people could look down on me physically. You could consider yourself special if you go to youtube.com/densepixels and subscribe. Subscribe to all of our podcasts, wherever you get them, including the Nerdpocalypse, which is coming back. Jay was out of the country. He was out of the country, but he made it back safe and sound. And I'm sure he can't wait to talk about how much better where he was is than where he is coming back to. Black on Black Cinema. What was the last movie we did on Black Cinema?
I don't remember what it was called. It
Claudine.
had James Earl Jones in it. That's all I know. So
Yeah, it was called Claudine. It was a romantic comedy drama that touched upon the pitfalls of the welfare system in America, and it's really good. A little too much James Earl Jones butt, but other than that, it's really good.
not a phrase I was expecting to hear tonight, but we keep you on your toes here at Dense Pixels. So
Coming distractions in the weekly preview episode of the Look Forward Political podcast, and if that's not enough for $5 a month or $50 for the full year, you can go to densepixels.com/premium and get access to all of our back catalog of podcasts, including the airing of grievances, No Time to Bleed, The Men with the Golden Tongues, Upstage Conversation, and the Pièce de Résistance, the weekly weekly full episode of the Look Forward Political podcast. That usually runs anywhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours of political goodness. Can't wait to hear the next episode at densepixels.com/premium.
we're gonna talk about banks and shit. So
Oh,
and the
snap.
FDIC, which is very tantalizing and exciting subject. So I was just speaking of premium. It was brought to my attention that when we migrated from our AWS server over to Podbean, that some of our old premium episodes might have gotten lost in the shuffle. And Jay is looking for them. But if we can't find some of the old Men with the Golden Tongues episodes, to me, there's no better excuse to maybe revisit some of the older James Bond films in the
that'd be fun.
Pantheon. Yeah. And just kind of
that'd
take another look at them. Plus, we still owe you MGS 3, which is going to be a rip-roaring good time as well. So, so many things to look forward to there. Micah, I feel like that this is like the gaming version. Remember that show, Intervention, that was on TV for a while? That when these families would have someone that's family member that's really into drugs or alcohol, and they would literally like plan an intervention for them and host it on television because reality TV knows no depth. I feel like Rocksteady needs that innovation, needs that some sort of intervention, because during the PlayStation showcase a couple weeks ago, they showed off like 15 minutes of gameplay from the new Suicide Squad game that was originally scheduled to come out in May. And the reaction was so poor that they have now delayed the game to later in 2023. Now, I think part of this could easily have been, when that game was coming out, like Zelda was right on his heels, and then Apocalypse June was right after that. So you could make the argument that maybe they're moving it out of that very competitive window to later in the year. But Micah, it's as if when they were developing this game, it was when Destiny 2 was the hotness. And they were like, how can we make Destiny but with the Suicide Squad? Not knowing what Marvel, and they planned this not knowing what Marvel Avengers was going to be, and realized that we saw the birth and death of Marvel Avengers in the development time it's taken for the new Suicide Squad game to come out. This looks like one of the least interesting games that I have ever had the displeasure of laying eyes on in my life.
It is not lost on me the couple of Freudian slips that you had when you introduced this topic. Yes, this game is in need of innovation and and reinvention. Um, Boy, this really sucks, man.
Yeah.
This really stinks because those Arkham games are
Classics.
they're yeah, they are. They're classics.
The first
They
two.
are the first two. Look, I like Arkham City. They stumbled at the end, or not Arkham City,
Arkham
Arkham
Knight.
Knight.
Yeah.
I like Arkham Knight, but they kind of limped over the finish line. They drove a car and the wheels fell off, and they just made it over the finish line. But Arkham City was amazing. Those games quite literally affected the industry and how other games were developed. People hold those games in high regard, which is all the more disappointing that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League looks like this.
Yeah.
You had a great premise with some A-list actors, including Samoa Joe. Who doesn't want to play Samoa Joe as a shark? And a wonderful premise, but then you look at it and it's like, all right, man, like this just looks like every other dumbass. It looks like Avengers, and everyone, no matter what their power level, can leap the same height. Everyone, no matter what their abilities, can fire the same guns in the exact same way. And
Yeah,
it's
so it's less innovative than Avengers. At least Avengers had the
right,
wherewithal to have unique powers for the heroes. You know what I
right,
mean? And had the heroes play like the hero, like you would kind of expect them to. Like you said, like the characters in this game are pretty much just like different Destiny classes. Like because like you said, they can all wield the same weapons. They probably all just have a couple unique special abilities that are
yeah,
specific to them. But yeah, it looks like every single other looter shooter that's come out over the past, 8 years, give or take, where you have guns that have all sorts of stats on them and rarities, and it's always online, even if you're just playing single player, and it has, special currencies in the game that you can earn, and I'm sure it's gonna be supported with a bunch of bullshit. Like, this game is 3 years late to a party that 3 years ago would have already been late for, basically.
yeah,
And again, I understand that game development is a cruise ship, right? Like you can't stop and turn on a dime without throwing away a ton of fucking work, and it's hard to make massive pivots to your design document once you've kind of like laid it out and started designing the systems of the game around this. So people are like, oh, this delay, oh, they're gonna rip out, like they're gonna change it from a freedom. No, they're not.
no, they're not.
It's too
They
late. It's
really
too late
aren't.
for that. At this point, this delay is about tweaking those systems to make them work as effectively as possible. But again, as we've seen time and time again, we talked about it a couple weeks ago on the show about how, well, in the wake of the Avengers being canceled, that this ship has sailed. Like, if you're not bringing something unique and special to the looter shooter genre at this point, it's already unlocked, guys. Like, Destiny fucking basically owns that house in terms of like live service, always online looter shooter gameplay. And the thing that they have that you will never have is they have 8 years of backlog and content and platform and systems and everything like that. And they it's from the people that made Halo, so it actually feels really good to play
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. And I was watching. What is her name? Stephanie Sterling, and one of these Mondays, and she was like, "Yeah, man, like people don't have time for multiple versions of these games. Like everyone wants to jump onto this onto this gravy train because they see what 1 or 2 games. No, man, you got one shot per genre of this type of game. And if it doesn't catch fire, like it's dead.
Yeah.
And God, this is such a the Suicide Squad concept is such a cool concept for a game, right? Like the whole point of them is they go in and they are disposable assets, and if they fail, they don't just disavow you; they kill you, right? And if this had been a perfect like open world like video game where if you step outside the boundaries of the world, boom, your head pops off. Or if you fail, if you pick a character, if that character fails, boom, permadeath, and you got to pick another character to finish the story, and it may not be the character you want, but like,
Or you could have just done like imagine 2021's was 2021? Yeah, I think it's 2021's Guardian of the or 2020's Guardian of the Galaxy game, but you could play it 4-player co-op.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's that would have been appealing. You know what? I when we inevitably get the Jason Schreier, behind the scenes article about this game 6 months after it comes out, I would be very curious to kind of live in the psyche of some of the folks at Rocksteady as they were developing this game and watched Avengers like circle the dream. Basically, I can't imagine they felt great watching that happen, knowing what was coming. So
I'm very curious, like who all was on board for this concept to begin with.
yeah.
And
And why did it take? I mean, again, AAA game development is slow, but this is slow by AAA game development standards. Yeah. Like Arkham Knight came out in 2015.
Yeah, man.
And unless there was some canceled project that there was always rumblings of a Superman game or a Justice League game that game was working on. So unless they had a project that they worked on for a couple of years that just got canceled and scrapped, this is what you have to show for 8 years of work. And again, I don't mean to besmirch anyone that's working at Rocksteady Studios, but you got to come better than this, especially with that pedigree and in this gaming environment. Yeah. This is just 2016, 2017 recycled stuff, and it's sad to see ultimately. So,
and which really like Gotham Knights just came out and bombed.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
You know what? It didn't bomb. It just left the consciousness. Like people just forgot about the game, basically.
Yeah.
What's funny? What's funny? Guess who's now the owner of a copy of Gotham Knights?
What? Really?
Only because it was part of a $30 humble bundle with like 80 games in it. And it just happened to be there. And so I was like, well, like I don't give a shit about Gotham Knights, but 80 games for $30 and there's actually like 10 of them that I want. Like, yeah, sure, I'm gonna buy this. So now I own Gotham Knights. I don't know when or if I'm gonna play it ever. But if I do, I'll let you know. I'll let you know how it is.
Wow. Yeah, I'm very curious because that game was supposed, if what I remember is true, that game was also supposed to be a looter shooter. Like there's loot in that game. Yeah. There's loot that augments your stats, and the whole point of getting into skirmishes is to get resources to get more loot. And they pivoted, and they just made a half-baked version of it.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get that with Suicide Squad. Like they're just delaying this in hopes that you kind of forget about this backlash.
I do think they're going to look at the systems, and they're probably going to analyze games like Avengers, games like Anthem, like games that have not worked, and they're going to look at what those studios did and try to avoid making those same mistakes. But at some point, the game is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, you
Right.
designed this game to be this like looter with like stats and shit like that. And that's another funny thing too. Like, so I've heard other folks make the point of these games, like the reason that you license these properties is to have a wider appeal. Do you think like casual fans are going to want to hop into the Suicide Squad game and just see spreadsheets of numbers everywhere on characters? Like, no, probably not. Like, and if you care about that shit, you're probably just playing Diablo or Borderlands or Destiny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a shame. I hope they make something of it, because it's not looking good. It's not looking good right now. So, Square Enix, Micah, has made reportedly are going to be the board is going to be making a motion to dismiss NFT-loving CEO Yosuke Matsuda from Square Enix in the wake of a lot of high-profile underperforming games. Where have we heard that before? It's weird that they don't. It's weird that they're not quite as vocal about it when they don't have Western-based studios to crutch and blame on all the time. Now, if you think that the exodus of Matsuda would mean, hey, they're finally seeing the light and pivoting away from NFTs and nonsense, the guy that's lined up to replace him as CEO is a man by the name of Takashi Kiryu, who's a very young executive that's only been with Square Enix for a couple of years. His previous job before he came to Square Enix was he worked for a technology company that was devoted to researching emerging trends such as blockchain and Web3.
See, you just got to get a young guy to work.
That's right. That's the problem. You can't have an old guy pitching NFTs. Like, look what happened. Larry David was hawking FTX, and then they went under.
I'm never wrong about these things. That is a wonderful commercial in hindsight. Like,
yes. It inadvertently based. So, fuck, man. Like, I got so excited when I saw this headline, and then when I read down the article, I'm just like, oh man. I was like, you're not changing anything except you're getting one old guy out and getting a young guy in. Like, god damn it, just pieces of shit.
That's funny.
This is as good a time as any to talk about the reveal of the previews that have gone out for Final Fantasy 16, and it's going to be a very different experience than we presumed that it was going to be. So essentially, it's still an RPG, but it is an RPG in systems only, because the gameplay is basically a character action game akin to a Devil May Cry.
They got the Devil May Cry action guy.
Yeah. Yes.
To do the combat.
Yeah, to be the combat director.
Maybe we'll get Terrence to play Final Fantasy.
So, like, I'm still interested, but I'm definitely not as like gung ho as I was before. Because, like, apparently you control Clive, who is the main character, and only Clive throughout the entire story. And there are points where you'll have like companions with you and stuff like that, but it is not a party-based RPG that we've seen from the Final Fantasy series up until this point, basically.
I admire the. This is a big swing for this franchise.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a big swing; it's a big swing for this franchise. I'm super curious, man. I'm still really, really curious about this. I'm old and I don't like change, so
you also like these games though, like these style of games. So
yes, but so that's why I'm not like, oh, I can't believe it, right? Like my gamer pride is being, tested because, like, no, I'm not, or whatever nonsense the director said, but I'm very curious. Like, it's funny, a lot of action games have role-playing game elements in them, i.e., constantly building up certain stats
Mhm.
or different checks to advance in different situations. And now the granddaddy of role playing games is is turning into an action game. Um, I've seen a lot of previews. Um, People don't have anything bad to say about it.
Mhm.
It's just different.
Yeah.
And yeah, look, I'm still super excited for it, man. Um, you gotta you gotta make you gotta make sure that these things are different from one another. Um, Especially because like these games don't come by often.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping that they're incredibly confident in what they have and the, inevitable spin-offs that come from it. Then you can experiment and or not experiment. You can go back to something a little more
Yeah, but I
traditional.
say ironically, the spin-offs will become the return to form, whereas in the
Right.
past it's always been the spin-offs is where they've done the experimentation with stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, anybody remember that Vincent Valentine game?
No, we don't, but we do remember Crisis Core with much more fondness. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, look, I'm still super interested in it. It's kind of odd that like I can't control anybody else. Like,
yeah, it's a little weird. It is a little weird. Um, I mean, there's a lot of things that like I kind of dig that the Esper fights are like basically giant kaiju battles
yeah, that's
in
cool,
like the
man.
environments and shit like that. Like that's pretty cool. Um, I know it's going to be a good game. Like it's probably going to get great reviews. I just don't know if it's going to be my type of game, or at least not what I'm looking for in a Final Fantasy game. Because you know me, like I never had the desire to get on like the Devil May Cries or like the Bayonettas or anything like that. Like those never really drew me in. Maybe it'll be different with this because again, it's still a Final Fantasy game. It's still going to have this grand story. They're doing what they always do with Final Fantasy and interjecting like political narratives into the mix that have allegories to real world situations that are going on. In this game, basically, it's basically an energy crisis that's causing the strife in the world that you're playing in.
Yeah,
So we'll see. Like I said, I'm sure we'll see a little bit more preview wise before the game comes out, and that'll I'm sure help me make up my mind. But if I don't dig it and I don't play it right away, look, that's one less game I have to worry about fucking traipsing through in June.
get your politics out of my video games. There's no correlation between the gigantic world destroying energy monsters and nuclear bombs. There's no correlation at all. There's no correlation between people trying to harness the power of a gigantic energy bomb and a nuclear weapon. There's
Or
no
control
correlation.
an energy resource for the prosperity of their own lands, and then when they lose access to said resource, go to war with other neighboring lands to get the resource. I've
Totally fictional.
never seen it happen ever in real life ever. Also, on a side note, apparently Octopath Traveler 2 is like the bee's knees, according to people.
Really?
Really. Like they said it's basically one of those situations where they're like they took every criticism of the first game and learned from it and basically created a narrative that you still have the 8 stories, but they did a much better job at weaving them together so that yeah. Yeah, just
Tell me that.
I'm not paying $60 for it. I've
I
decided
know
that
that's the thing,
already. Yeah,
yo.
I'm not paying $60 for it.
I saw it. I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
God, this is out!" And then I saw that price tag, and I was
Yeah.
just like, "Oof, I'm sorry, guys.
I
I don't know."
at this point, if I see it go on sale for 40, I'll give it a strong thought. If it goes down to 30 anytime soon, probably gonna buy it for $30. Probably gonna
Yeah,
give it a shot for $30.
that feels $30 feels perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
we'll see.
60 though, way too much. I don't care how good the game is. I don't have $60 for Octopath Traveler right now. Lastly, in the news, Elden Ring finally right around their 1 year anniversary, announced an expansion that is coming out. It's called Shadow of the Erdtree. We don't know when it's coming out because apparently it's going to be huge because it is going to be taking place inside of a whole nother like map, basically. I don't know how big the map is in comparison to the world in the base game Elden Ring, but this is going to take place in like an area that's humongous and have all new encounters and boss battles and things of that nature and a new story to go through. And it just reminded me that I really need to get back to Elden Ring at some point. So
it's super fun, man. Like I get that, why you fell off, but I didn't play that game necessarily for the overall story.
yeah, I played it to have fun. I played it to enjoy myself, and it didn't even necessarily play it to complete it. Like I just wanted to experience it. And again, like we've talked about it on the show for really the past year, it's made me want to check out other From games, not only knowing that I feel confident to tackle them now, but also because I know those games are much more self-contained and they're not this like sprawling, open world epic. Like I know Bloodborne is like a 30 to 40 hour game. And then that's it. So
that's the only one that I really want to try. I tried what's the samurai game? Sekiro. And I was not ready for Sekiro.
Yeah, and even that, like that one still is kind of like put on the pedestals. Like you have to really like the combat. Like you have to really be here for the combat to play this one.
Yeah, that was my first one.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
But all right, look, give me an excuse to go back into that world.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will gladly take it.
And ironically, though she was the last to play it amongst us, I think Carrie has progressed the furthest. I'm pretty sure she's either beat the game or come close to beating the game.
You go. There you go. So, give me any excuse to go back. Give me some more troll. I got a platinum in that thing. Give me an excuse to
Oh, you did?
I loved Elden Ring.
No, I know, but I'm still surprised that you got the. So wait, you beat it then?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize you did. I thought you fell off as well. Okay.
Nobody. I put 165 something hours into that game. It was a long time since I've put that kind of time in a game, especially given how my life is now compared to all the free time that I had.
Oh, you've got no excuse to not play Bloodborne then.
That's the only one I want to play.
Yeah,
that's the only one I want to play.
It's like people say from like a whole package, like people that are From fans say as far as like a complete package goes, it's the best one. There are people that still put it above Elden Ring just in terms of like a cohesive whole.
Yeah, that's got to be on PlayStation Plus,
it is,
right?
No, you probably have it for free. Like it was one of the games that was part of the PS5 like welcome to PlayStation bundle thing that you got.
Well, I'm going to double check because if that's the case, then yeah.
Yeah, you got to claim it. You got to claim it. And it was on PlayStation Plus for free at some point. Like when I got my PS5, I found that I had already owned it. So
okay,
yeah,
all right. Well, yeah, all right. I might be putting like a dragon down and playing Bloodborne because I absolutely love Elden Ring. If you love Elden Ring and you love celebrating or helping out small businesses by enriching people who are already too rich, go to densepixels.com/Amazon. For all of your Amazon needs. When you go to densepixels.com/Amazon, you can buy whatever you want. It doesn't cost you anything extra. We get a finder's fee. Let's go to densepixels.com/Amazon right now. Let's type in Elden Ring. Of course, you can get the Elden Ring game on PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, and Xbox Series for $52.99, $53.75, and $69.99 respectively. Or you can get a 41-inch two-piece set medieval fantasy Elden Ring foam sword for video game cosplay costume prop collection. They're the Star Scourge Radon swords
Okay. I was
that
I
you
was gonna
get.
ask you like which sword it was because I figured it was either that, the fucking the Moonblade katana, or like the Bloodhound, like the Bloodfang
Yeah,
sword. So
yeah. Go get yourself some. Go cosplay as Star Scourge Radon, and get yourself. I guess proportionally, you would have to get like a dog with like a really strong back to
not
ride
not
around.
only a dog, you'd have to get like a small dog. You'd have to get like a fucking Jack Russell
Yeah,
Terrier.
yeah. You couldn't get like a Great Dane, right? That
No.
would make too much sense. Nah, man, nah. You, you gotta look comically huge on that thing. With these swords. You can get them for 58.04 plus 11.95 shipping only at densepixels.com/Amazon. If you don't go to densepixels.com/Amazon, you can never get to Amazon. It's weird.
If only. If only that were the way. That would be doing this podcast every day, basically. We go to the post office, which the mail's been stacking up in the post office, so we have to clear it out. We start with Sushi and Sashimi, who says thoughts on the new season of Drive to Survive. It was nice seeing Max Verstappen agreeing to do the interviews this season. The new season was fine. I don't think it hit the. It's not one of my favorite seasons of Drive to Survive, basically because there wasn't nearly as much drama in F1 last season, especially compared to the season prior. The best episode was the episode where the financial or the financial cap breach penalty was announced against Red Bull from the prior season, because it was really funny to see just like how fucking catty all the team principals are with each other, like quite hilarious. And to watch like Christian Horner be like super defensive, and but I was watching with my wife, and you know she's just like you broke the rules. I'm like, yeah, but he has to be so defiant and out there like that, because that way he makes it seem like they were hard done, even though they got off relatively lightly. Red Bull did. But that if someone else violated the rules, he'd be the first one in line to with the pitchforks to string him up. So just kind of how it goes. But yeah, it was fine. Again, not my favorite season, and also very sad at the end to see Daniel Ricciardo, knowing that he's not going to probably be very highly featured in Drive to Survive Season 6, because we're not going to see him that much this year. Jace says, question, realistically, do you think that you will ever play all of the games that you have saved in your backlog? What type of conditions would be required for it to happen? How much time do you think it would take? As a working professional, I feel that this is a pipe dream.
It's nigh impossible, especially nowadays when
You have so much free shit being thrown at you.
yeah, is there so much stuff that's just like, oh, I might play that. Let me add to library, like a fucking idiot. Let me add to library, but then I'll never, I'll forget about it, or
Yeah.
I'll, especially on my Xbox, because like I rarely turn it on, and when I do, there's so much stuff there that it's just I don't even bother with thinking. Like if I think about it, if I'm just browsing, it's like Netflix on that, where it's like, oh, hey, there's this, and the problem is like the games that I like, they don't. You're not just in it. It
Yeah.
takes a couple hours to kind of get into it, and that's the reason why I won't go back, because I can't commit that kind of time to get back into it, because something else will come up, or something like I'd have to really devote. It's like reading a book, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can't just read the first two chapters of a book and then put it down. If I do that, something will happen and then I have to restart. So I'm not. I can't.
Yeah. For me, it's arguably worse, because now that most of my gaming is done via Steam, I've become one of those guys where stuff gets just like stupidly discounted on Steam. And I just look at it and be like, well, I'd be stupid not to buy it at that price, even if it's not something that I particularly need or want that much.
Yeah.
And so now I have like 80 games in my Steam library, of which I'm probably not going to touch at least a quarter of them, if I had to guess.
I can't wait for your review of Gotham Knights.
Look, it'll have to be a really fucking boring day to make that happen. And that's the other problem too, is like I keep finding things that have always been on the periphery, right? And then like something will encourage me to kind of want to check it out more. Good example. So the other day, browsing on YouTube, and because I've been watching a lot of JRPG shit, the algorithm's like, hey, like how would you like a brief 20-minute overview of the Ys series? And I'm like, all right, sure, fucking A, I'll check it out. I don't know jack shit about Ys other than there's like 10 of them, which is crazy to me for a game that not only have I never played, but I don't know that I know anyone that's played any of these games. But yet somehow they're popular because they made 10 of them. And basically I come to find out that instead of just like a traditional old school turn-based JRPG, Ys is basically like Japanese like Legend of Zelda meets Diablo. And I'm like, oh, I guess I gotta check out the Ys series because this is like right up my fucking alley. So did I download Ys Origins on Steam last night for $5 because it was on sale for 75% off? Yes, I did. Am I gonna play Ys Origin at some point? Yes, I am. And it's gonna be fucking awesome, hopefully. So and that's why my backlog will never end, because I keep adding stuff to it and then bumping that stuff to the back of the line when new, more exciting things come along. So go figure. Anthony says, I played the last Hot Wheels game on Game Pass, and easy was too easy, but medium kicked my teeth in because I suck at video games. What game was too easy at first, but then quickly too hard when you up the difficulty level? The Hot Wheel game is a really good one, because I played that on medium. Fucking game's hard, man. Hard to win races in Hot Wheels. I can't remember the subtitle of the game, but I think it's like Hot Wheels Unleashed or something like that. The one that just came out, which is very good, by the way. That came out last year. Trying to think of like what games had like huge difficulty spikes when you change the difficulty setting. See, you're more equipped to answer this question than me, because I don't typically. I just stick with the developer intended difficulty mode usually.
I mean, unless I usually just go straight. I don't touch it usually, unless it's on like a replay.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a replay, then I'm just kind of messing around, and but if I'm doing a game on a replay, it's because I haven't played it in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no like really good comparison between the two. Look, I don't have a problem bumping a game on easy either if I feel I'm getting my ass kicked, but I can normally get through. Like the normal difficulty setting,
Mm-hmm.
and unless I absolutely love the game, I have no desire to bump it up. Like I did that with Mass Effect,
Mm-hmm. The Uncharted series.
The Uncharted series. That's a good one. And I've done it with Spider-Man. But in every instance, it's just a they do more damage, you do less damage type of situation.
Mm-hmm.
So you just can't get hit, especially Uncharted. That last fight with that bald dude throwing all those grenades, like you just can't get hit. With Spider-Man, there are ways that you can regain health.
Mm-hmm.
And with Mass Effect, the only way I was able to do it with Mass Effect is I have to have a very specific loadout. I have to be an infiltrator, and I have to kill people from afar, and I have to have certain party members that do certain things. But they were all doable. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know, because I generally just don't like. I play games to relax. I'm not here to prove a point. I
feel like fighting games are good for this, and really like when you're playing through the arcade mode, when you get to the later characters that you fight, that's where you see the big spikes. Because even like
Oh
on
yeah,
easy,
every Mortal
Bison
Kombat game.
or Street Fighter, like in the older Street Fighters, like on easy, like you can pretty much wash, the boss characters like Bison and Sagat and stuff like that. But even if you crank that up to like medium difficulty, those characters start getting a little obscene. and then,
Every Mortal Kombat game, right? The first three people you fight in a ladder are, I mean, they're like training dummies.
mm-hmm,
And then that fourth fight, it's like you're swimming with sharks. And if you get past those three, like it's weird. It's one of the reasons why like I'm not a huge fan of Mortal Kombat. It feels soulless. Like the actual gameplay feels soulless to me. Which is weird because like the characters are just like eclectic. Like everybody loves the Mortal Kombat characters, but like the actual game is the thing that is holding that game back. And you get through the first three, no problem. If you can get through the next three, the last three are just dickheads,
mm-hmm.
and then you get to the top of the dick, the fireman's hat, Shao Kahn, and he is just the epitome of a cheap boss.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that would probably be. Thank you, Brad, for bringing up fighting games. Mortal Kombat is probably the answer that I would choose.
Trey says, do you think the short-lived success of Bionic Commando Rearmed and Strider were three freak occurrences, or could Capcom or any other big studio find that level of zeitgeist with a dormant franchise? I think it depends. So like the reason that Bionic Commando Rearmed is really good is because it took a solid NES game and just modernized it, right? Like they took something that had good bones and they just built, very pretty exterior and better controls on top of it. The problem is that to find like a long dormant franchise, you first have to find a franchise that had at least some modicum of cachet back in the day when it was first around. But you have to give it like modern, like modern, a modern coat of paint essentially, and make it feel good to play amidst, like it still has to feel like a modern game. Even if it's like a genre driven game, it still has to feel like a modern game. And also, how do you define zeitgeist? Because like I feel like Street Rage 4 got a lot of popularity in in a bit of a smaller community, rather, but it's still I think it still did very well for that game, and that was like a resurrection of a long dormant franchise that did what the original games did, but just like put a modern go to bait on it and made it really fun.
Yeah. I think any studio could, right? Especially with nostalgia being as powerful as it is, and people just not afraid to weaponize it. But like you said, you just have to. It's like the thing that you said about Suicide Squad. It's easy to just, get a license that everyone likes, that has a built-in audience. The hard part is making the game. How these companies are just screwing up with these billion-dollar franchises. You get the Avengers franchise, and you make that Avengers game. I mean, a lot of people need to find a new line of work.
Well, and it's funny you bring up Avengers because the studio or the publisher that has the most potential here to do this and be successful at it is Square. They just refuse to touch, or can't for whatever reason touch, some of these other games that would be like do gangbusters for them. Like if they did like a remastered like HD 2D version of Chrono Trigger, would be one of the biggest fucking games to come out in whatever year it comes out in. Like like leave the game alone, make it exactly the same, but just make it look like Octopath Traveler, and that game's gonna fucking blow up. something fierce. They can't do it because there's a shitload of licensing issues that are attached to Chrono Trigger that make it hard to do. They could dip into their catalog and get Vagrant Story, blow the cobwebs off of that, and and make that popular, because there's a shitload of people who would be really down for Vagrant Story that have never even heard of Vagrant Story, or at least haven't played Vagrant Story back in the day. If they ever did an HD remaster of Final Fantasy VII, not Final Fantasy VII Remake, because that's a whole new game, but if they just touched up the original Final Fantasy VII and made it super pretty, that would do fucking gangbusters. There's a ton of shit that Square could do that I feel like would be relatively easy, but for some reason they're either keeping their powder dry or they just have no interest in making money. So unless it's through NFTs.
Jesus.
So T-Wash says, what type of backstory do you hope Shepard has in the Mass Effect show? I hope for a colonist soul survivor Shepard, just to see his interaction with Batarians.
I do like that. I know what I don't want. I don't want Earthborn Ruthless. That's just the recipe for a renegade Shepard, and I'm for an all renegade Shepard, and I don't want that. I don't have a problem with a spacer Shepard, just because I'm a sci-fi military wonk, so I like that stuff, but I don't think people would necessarily root for that type of Shepard. I think if military family, born in the military, that's a little too rigid for people. Yeah. So I think colonist Shepard is the right answer. I kind of like the idea of colonist Shepard war hero.
Yeah, I like that one too. I don't think you want space racist Shepard, because you're already going to have an Ashley character, presumably, to handle the casual space racism for you.
Right.
And I feel like the type of Shepard, if they're doing some kind of Mass Effect show that adheres to the games in some way, shape, or form, I think the type of Shepard that you would get would be a Paragon Shepard with a couple dashes of Renegade in specific situations thrown in.
Yeah. But I would go colonist war hero. Would be the Shepard that I would pick.
I'm fine. Like I said, they would make him a likable character. So obviously, like you said, Ruthless out of the question. Earthborn would be fine too. I don't have a problem with that, though. Like I said, colonists, I think, it makes him more worldly, or not worldly. That's a terrible term. More galaxy-y.
More universal.
Yes, there you go. Johnny asks, have you guys ever tried making a meal or a food item from a video game recipe? Also, is Terrence going to enter in the UMVC3 tournament at EVO? Probably not. I don't think Terrence is flying to Vegas.
If you put up the money, he'll do it.
Yeah. No, I've never tried cooking anything from a game. Apparently, Carrie has. But no, I've never had the inclination. I can't cook, by the way. I'm a terrible cook. I'm awful.
I'm good, but I'm good at reading directions. So, and then adding or subtracting whatever I feel I need to I can cook. My wife is a modern woman. Just put it that way. she can make really good mac and cheese. But she's never confident in what she does. So she's like, oh, I gotta tweak it. Nah, yo, that's your signature dish. You don't tweak a signature dish. You don't change your signature every time you write your name. That's your signature dish. So, stick with what works. And when it comes to everything else, she's very much a modern woman, which I love, because it's just all right, I'll cook because I want it done the way I want it done. I'm a jerk like that. So
Johnny also, and the last question is his. When was the last time you seen the collective majority of gamers say hard pass on a game like Suicide Squad? Battlefront 2, maybe. Now, I thought about this, because the thing is, people at least bought Battlefront 2. Like Battlefront 2 sold well. And people just hated it when it came out. But they still bought the game. I'm trying to remember the last time that people saw a preview of a game, like an in-depth preview, and were just like, nah. that's not really gonna fly. God, this is gonna bug me. It's tough, right?
Yeah, it is tough because, like you said, everyone has picked. They at least bought it.
Right.
I'm looking at a list. What about Aliens Colonial Marine?
Was that game ever going to even be anything though? You know what I mean? Like I don't know that had the expectations built in that Suicide.
I think it wasn't it one of those things where it was like it looked like one thing, but then when people got it in their hands, they were like, "Oh, this isn't what was advertised."
Yeah,
and not to to a more extreme version of like what Watch Dogs was, right? Like to the point where people were just like, "No, I don't want to even touch this."
So I feel like it's gonna be an EA game. It's just like, what is the EA game that caused this reaction? I'm sorry, but I feel like it is. I have nothing to support this, but I like something in my bones just tells me that's correct. Gosh, it's tough, man. Like it really has been a minute since I've seen this much fervent pushback against a game. And there have been plenty of games that looked cool and then got canceled. You know what I mean? Like the opposite happens all the time. Where like think of Scalebound. Like Scalebound looked all right, and then eventually that game got the plug pulled out from under it. Actually, you know what? I know what it was. It was Crackdown 3.
Oh yeah. That game, that whole series. I mean, can we all be honest and just admit that like we bought that game because it came with like a Halo demo or some shit? Like that whole series is not good, man. It just isn't. It doesn't. What about Warcraft 3 Reforged? Those are not my games, but I remember people kind of getting pissed at that.
Like I said, for the specific community, I could definitely see that. I would say like Diablo Immortal, except that again, that game has been wildly successful despite the initial reaction to it. So like you can't really.
We all knew that was. We all knew that was.
Yeah. So you can't really put that in the same class. Yeah, man. I feel like Crackdown 3 is the one that sticks in my mind the most, because that was going to be a big fucking deal, and then they showed that trailer. It wasn't even a gameplay trailer. Like they just showed like the preview trailer, and people were like, I don't know. And then they showed the gameplay trailer, and they're like, not feeling this too much. Not feeling this. So that was probably it. And again, like Battlefront 2 at least made good at the end of the day. Like that game's actually quite, I think still has a fairly decent player base that's come out too. I feel like Battlefield 2042 might have also had that initial reaction when people first started seeing stuff, when they were like, oh, there's not going to be classes and this or the other thing. I feel like I remember like a lot of Battlefield purists were like kind of turned off by it. So
yeah.
God,
that Crackdown series. Crackdown is just busy work the game, yo. It just like that whole series is just.
I couldn't tell you anything about Crackdown 3. I could tell you literally nothing about it except Terry Crews in it. That's the only thing. It's the only thing I know.
I mean, that's the moral of the story, I guess. Don't put Terry Crews in a video game because it won't do well, I guess.
So thank you guys for patiently waiting for the answers to those questions in the post office, which you too can submit questions to by joining our Discord by going to densepixels.com/fans. You can also subscribe to the show and all the other TNP Studio shows wherever you download fine podcast. You can subscribe on YouTube by going to youtube.com/densepixels. Ring the bell icon so you're always notified when new episodes post. Make sure you follow all of us on Twitch as well. I'm Dense Pixels Brad, Carrie Suppets Carrie, Terrence is Apparition 410. And that is it for this first episode. Look, you got a slightly supersized episode this week to make up for the lost time. Hopefully everything works the way it should in the universe to make sure that we're on for 2 consecutive weeks, which would be fantastic. So until next time, thank you guys very much for watching and listening, and we'll see you.
See ya.